Hey, welcome back, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Hopefully, we're having an all right day out there, and things are kind of picking up a little bit in the world of weather, at least in what we're seeing on the horizon. Now, currently, things remain quiet, but we are watching the potential for kind of two type of storm systems. The first one could be in the tropics, and this could kind of be the last hurrah of the year, if you will. And some of our model guidance is suggesting that it could be quite the hoorah at that too, with maybe even hurricane potential down into the Caribbean. And where that goes is still a big question and still a ways away, but we are definitely going to touch on that in today's video. Now, the other kind of question mark is what's going to happen right around the end of the month towards Halloween time and towards the first couple of days of November, as there is a potential for a bit of a storm system in the central part of the country that could bring maybe the first kind of severe weather, snow kind of dynamic system of the year, or at least of the season, I should say. And we will definitely touch on that as well. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you like it. Comment, let me know where you're watching from, and let me know kind of if you have any cool end of month plans. One more thing I will mention, tonight, me and Mitch from Mitch West Weather are going to be live on my channel doing our Scud Spotter podcast in live format. So we're going to be taking your questions. We're going to be, I guess answering anything that you have that's, school appropriate at least. So definitely swing on by. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight, again, on my channel. I will link it in the description. Consider sharing it with somebody that you think might find that interesting. And yeah, I think with that said, that's enough announcements. Let's go ahead and dive on into the weather. All right, so current view of satellite imagery, what we're seeing in the tropics. Currently, we have what is left of Tropical Storm Oscar, if that's what you want to call it. Really, it's just a mess. In fact, the center is actually over here. And everything else is just kind of off to the side. So definitely a very disorganized storm, and as quickly as Oscar blew up, it died out here, which is obviously good news, but it's still definitely bringing some thunderstorm activity over the southern Bahamas. So, a rainfall, threat there is definitely still in the cards, but in terms of a severe tropical storm or hurricane impacts, Oscar is basically done for, which is obviously some good news. Now, outside of that, you'll notice not really much is happening in the Caribbean or the Gulf. So you're probably saying, well, Gerald, what are you talking about? You're saying there's going to be some storm coming. I don't see anything. And that is very true. You don't see anything, but that's what you're seeing right now. Now, as we get about a week or so from now, I am expecting an uptick in thunderstorm activity into the Caribbean as a favorable MJO phase passes over, basically just leading to some divergence aloft and some convergence at the surface. And that's kind of the first initial step in tropical activity and this Central American gyre. So going to need to watch for that. And we're going to really dive into that here in just a second. But before we do, just to show this to you, again, over the next 7 days, so just now through next Tuesday, the National Hurricane Center is not expecting any type of formation. The only thing on the map is Oscar, and Oscar, again, on its last leg here, expected to become a post-tropical cyclone by overnight tonight and into tomorrow. So Oscar on his last leg, and other than that, again, you'll see nothing in the Atlantic. Now, in the Pacific, we do have Tropical Storm Christy, which was actually formerly Nadine, which had impacted Central America last week and then crossed into the Pacific and reformed into a new storm. So basically, the same storm got two names, which is always kind of exciting to see. And even more exciting is that it's not expected to impact anybody. So that is the good news there. All right, so let's go ahead and dive on into what could be kind of the last hurrah, if you will, here through the end of the month. Again, I'm going to start this by saying, like I just showed you, nothing in the next 7 days. This is probably going to be more than 7 days out is when we would have this chance of development. And even then, probably not for another 10 to 15 days. Should there be any United States impacts, which there's still a very real possibility that we don't see impacts in the United States, which we will obviously hope for. But either way, it's going to be tough for a storm to form in the Caribbean and not impact somebody, whether that's Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola, Central America, or perhaps even the United States. We will see. But let's go ahead and talk about it. So here we go. This is about a week from now on the GFS. So this is, excuse me, I can't talk. This is overnight Monday into Tuesday of next week. And you'll notice, again, things picking up in the Western Caribbean. Thunderstorm activity getting stronger. We're seeing more deepening of the pressure values out here. Again, a sign of that favorable environment for storm development. And as we move this further ahead and get into about the 10-day time frame, a little less than that, this is about 8 days from now, here we go. We now are getting tropical development into this portion of the Caribbean. And again, starting as a big, broad, messy system. It's what we often see with these Central American gyres. And I do expect any storm that does form down here to be a large one, just given the time of year and given kind of the conditions here. It would support a larger storm compared to a smaller storm, kind of like what we saw with Milton, how small Milton was. Not expecting that. This, again, would probably be a bigger storm system. And then we get this out towards about 10 days, and the GFS develops this into a hurricane near the island of Jamaica to start the month of November. So again, November is not immune to tropical systems, especially the first week or two. And this year could be one of those years that we do kind of get that last hurrah in the month of November. And I'm going to show you the rest of the run. But again, preface this with this is not a forecast. This is not how this is going to unfold. But I think it shows the overall pattern that we're dealing with. And that is one of potential strengthening storm in the Caribbean. Again, impacts Jamaica, impacts, Cuba, and then gets pulled up north towards the state of Florida during the first week of November, and then kind of meanders around and gets near the southeast coastline in the 10 to 15 day time frame. So again, I don't show that to you as a forecast. And in fact, if I really want to show you something crazy, I'd show you the run before this, which basically pulled a Hurricane Sandy over the southeast. But again, that's not my forecast. It's not anybody's forecast. But again, we do need to watch this as the environmental conditions are favorable for a storm of some sort. Now, that could be a weak tropical storm. That could be a major hurricane. That could just be a big area of showers and thunderstorms that never gets a name. But that's why we need to watch this to find out which one of those outcomes is the most likely. All right, so that was the GFS. Let's take a look at the European, and this is getting into the same time frame about a week from now, and you'll notice kind of the same general thing unfolding, thunderstorm activity picking up here from the Central America gyre, and, you know, deepening pressure values as well on the European. Now, what happens on the European, though, is a little bit different, which is not a whole lot. In fact, we actually get a storm about 10 days from now back out towards the Bahamas. And that's even, again, not all that tropical in nature. That has some fronts with it, but still not nearly as excited from the European. But I'll tell you, and it's been this way all year long, the GFS has been more ambitious with storm development, and the Euro has been much more conservative with storm development. And generally speaking, the GFS has won this year. It's been right more often than the Euro, I would say, on cyclogenesis. So, you know, again, another reason we need to watch things. But the good news is right now, the European does not show anything crazy in the next 10 days. So we will hope that that is the outcome. I'll show you the Euro AI model as well. And again, it's really the same story. We do get deepening pressure values. We get thunderstorm activity in the Western Caribbean. But nothing really comes of it. And again, the only thing that forms on the Euro AI model is that kind of same general area the European showed has a weak storm kind of near the Bahamas in about 10 to 12 days from now. But again, not nearly as flashy as the GFS model. All right, the Canadian model, the CMC model, what about this one? Well, it's kind of, you know, a little bit closer to the GFS here. So again, we get about a week from now, we get into that 7 to 10 day range, and kind of hard to see here, but you'll notice this area of thunderstorm activity trying to converge into a defined low pressure system, and whether that's a tropical storm, a hurricane, a depression, or just a strong wave, again, up for interpretation, but does eventually get this into what I would say is tropical storm strength. Very similar to the GFS near the island of Jamaica in about 10 days. And I'll tell you, the ocean temperatures down here in the Caribbean are really still off the charts. I mean, it is very warm. It is very unstable, if you will. And, you know, if we do get some area with a lack of wind shear and lack of dry air, I have no doubt that we will get a storm system to form, potentially a strong one that, again, could pull north towards the United States. And that's what we will need to watch here. And that's what this next map I'm going to show you is going to kind of tell us. All right, so these are our ensemble members, and if you know me, I love some ensembles, probably one of my favorite tools for forecasting of any type, and these are the GFS ensembles. We'll start with these, and then we'll show you the European, but here we go. This is, again, getting about 198 hours out. This is next Wednesday, so call it 8 days from right now, and the GFS and its ensembles are very, again, excited about the idea of pressure value. Actually, let me explain the map a little bit more. You'll see all these tiny little numbers on your screen. You'll see 05, 04, 06, 99. Those are pressure values from each ensemble member where there is the lowest pressure. So 03 would be 1,003 millibars. 99 would be 999 millibars. 62 would be 962 millibars. So Again, you just kind of have to correlate that. But either way, if you don't want to look at that, just look at the colors. Where you see colors getting brighter, kind of with the key here on your y-axis, that just means there's more vorticity, there's deeper pressure values, and there's more consensus on the ensembles. That's where a storm would be. Okay, now that I explained that, let's move ahead. So again, on the GFS, we got a ton of members in that 7 to 10 day time frame that develop something. Look at this, about 10 days from now. I mean, for 10 days out on an ensemble in the tropics, this is a strong signal, folks, for something to develop. I mean, this is, again, a lot of members clustered right here into the Caribbean. In fact, I would say probably 90% of the GFS ensemble members develop some kind of storm and have it at least in the vicinity here in this circle. But you'll also notice the other problem is how big the circle I just drew is. I mean, it could be in the Bahamas, it could be all the way down near Panama. There's a lot of room for interpretation, but definitely a cluster here near the island of Jamaica, Hispaniola, and the southern side of Cuba. And then as we move that past the 10-day time frame, that pulls north. And at this point, this is when things just get cattywampus. Some models pull this out into the Atlantic. Some models pull this north towards Florida. Some try to get it into the Gulf. Again, but you'll notice a general northward pull here in the model guidance. Just, where is that northward pull is going to be the big question. But again, growing confidence in some sort of storm system down here. And the European and its ensemble members, not quite as excited, but still a signal for sure. This is getting about 10 plus days out, a little further south, but still clustering together on an area and then another area kind of clustering where the operational runs showed it. So kind of a dual mode here on the European ensembles. And I think, the model will fight with itself a little bit once it gets more data and kind of decide which one of those it thinks is more likely, but still a signal. And then I'll even pull this ahead into time for you. And you'll notice those Caribbean systems that do develop, a lot of them do get pulled north towards the Gulf, towards Florida, or towards the Bahamas. So we need to watch it. Cannot let your guard down because, again, hurricane season not quite over. But I will say after this storm, I would think that we would be done with anything major, at least, in the tropics. All right, so what about back home? Again, the tropics obviously are important, but, we don't live in the middle of the Caribbean Ocean. Nobody does. So I guess you folks in Jamaica kind of do, but nobody lives in the ocean itself, at least, and we still got 10 plus days. So let's talk about what's happening over the lower 48 in the continental United States. Currently, again, the jet stream is kind of just buckling over the east, meaning we've got this big ridge out here and then kind of some zonal flow over the Pacific Northwest. And this has led to well above average temperatures for many of us east of the Rockies kind of into this block. I mean, I think the high yesterday in Minneapolis was 85 degrees. I saw somebody post, and that is quite uncommon for the end of October. Now, those of us in the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, it's not too uncommon to get into the 80s, even into late October. But for a place like Minneapolis, just not something you see every day. So it has been warm. The question is, how long is that warmth going to last? And are we going to have to pay for it in the form of some storms here later on? And I'll go ahead and answer that in just a moment. But taking a look at radar, again, we do have the leftovers of our storm system that brought some severe weather yesterday and the days prior. This is over Iowa currently. Bringing actually some pretty good storms, even a couple that are trying to become strong here into portions of Iowa. That'll move through the Cedar Rapids and Iowa City area later this afternoon. But this kind of cluster of storms is losing its upper level support, meaning it is likely to weaken through the day. And likely by the time we're looking at it tonight on radar, won't be really much of a shell of itself by then. Now, to the north, we do have a storm system kind of up into Canada, and this is helping to bring a pretty good area of some precipitation up into Minnesota, North Dakota, Montana, northern Minnesota, and North Dakota. I think I switched up my M's there. Either way, though, you'll notice, though, again, that rain moving through, and that will be kind of the first of a couple cold fronts that we're watching this week. It's going to be, kind of actually nice, to be honest with you, because it has been so warm, but we are going to get a little bit of relief. So let's back this up for you. Again, like I said, it has been really warm in Minnesota and areas up into the northern Great Plains. But here is our first front. You'll notice this trough digging down this pocket of cooler air, kind of, not getting super far south, but definitely clipping you folks in the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. That's what that rain moving through now is. It's that front. So today into tomorrow, that cool air will funnel in, then moves through the Great Lakes, Wisconsin, Michigan, going to get some nicer air out of this, and then eventually clipping the Northeast by later this week. Now, that's the first cold front. Behind it, here comes the second cold front. You'll notice all this nice blue trapped up into Canada, but a bit of it will buckle down south into the northeast and bring another cold front later this week into the weekend. And then that'll swing on through. And then after that, another ridge builds in and a huge trough dumps out west. And that'll be the start of what I think could be our next big time storm, which we will discuss in a moment. But before we get there, let's kind of just talk about the near term a little bit. So this afternoon across the east, again, a couple showers up into the Midwest and up into the northern Great Plains. Here's our front. And by the way, it's probably a good thing that I'm getting the education on this because I've learned a lot about reading surface maps. So you might be wondering, well, Gerald, where's the cold front on here? How do you know there's a cold front? Well, something I have learned this semester is all fronts live in troughs. And here's one trough here. Here's another trough. You'll notice this trough axis. So right here's our cold front. And behind it is where that nicer air is going to funnel in with high pressure, and that's exactly what happens here. You see that troughing swing on through, that's the front, and then behind it, here's an area of high pressure bringing in that cooler, nicer air. So again, kind of cool that you don't necessarily need a map that tells you where all the fronts are. You can kind of use the knowledge and find it, but definitely this afternoon, some scattered showers through that region as that front swings on through. Overnight tonight, some showers through the UP of Michigan into northern Michigan itself. And then we get into tomorrow afternoon for our Wednesday. Then that front eyes the northeast. We get some scattered showers, especially during the evening time tomorrow through the northeast, specifically the interior northeast, I think, for, again, our overnight Wednesday into Thursday. And everywhere else, I mean, it's pretty dry. A couple showers in the state of Florida, maybe even a rumble of thunder with some convection not out of the question. But overall speaking, the only really active weather is going to be into the northern tier of the country as these fronts just clip the United States. And we'll move this further out ahead in time. This is Wednesday evening. Here's that front again working through the northeast. How do I know? Well, again, there's rain, but also here's this trough axis right here indicating that we do have that push of cooler air and that dry conveyor belt on the backside. So that swings on through. Again, Wednesday evening, we're waking up Thursday, nicer conditions on the backside of that, high pressure working in. And then that will set the stage for later on this weekend where, again, the next cold front comes. Here we go. And we do get a bit of a storm system with this one. Now, I'm not expecting a big time severe weather outbreak or really even any snow with it, unfortunately, but this could produce a good amount of precipitation to some areas that are going to get some from the first round up through, again, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, and then eventually even swinging through the northeast here overnight Friday into Saturday. And again, here's that front, here's that trough. Again, not hard to find. And you'll notice this trough getting a little bit further south. So you folks in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, you might get in on some of this nicer, drier, cooler air as well, bringing us back down to fall a little bit here as that high pressure moves on in by the weekend. And we could even see some higher elevation snow into the northeast out of that as that cold air kind of funnels in pretty quickly behind the front. And then that gets us into early next week where at this point, again, things are kind of nice with that high pressure, but it's later into next week that ridge will build back in. And then again, setting the stage for our next potential storm system of significance. All right, so here we go. This is basically where we left off. This is next Monday afternoon. Actually, let me back it up a little bit. We'll start on Sunday afternoon. So again, here's that pocket of cold air. At this point, it doesn't look like it, but really most of us in the east will have that nicer, cooler air out of that. And I'll show you temperature anomalies here next, which I completely forgot to pull up, but I will do that for you. So that will swing on through. And then after that, this is when the pattern does kind of a flip on its head a little bit. So this is the European and its ensemble members indicating about 8 or 9 days from now, or even just as early as a week from now, a big time ridge in the east indicating warmer temperatures and a big time trough in the west indicating cooler temperatures. And what's going to happen here in between is the jet stream is going to go a little bit berserk. So we're likely going to get a pretty strong jet streak in between these two big air masses. And that combined with some diffluence here from our trough, we're going to very likely, I think, at some point get one or multiple areas of low pressure to develop in between these air masses and kind of follow the ridge and move northward. So what this could lead to is a couple things. One, severe weather. Two, maybe some snowfall. That's not out of the question either. But just overall, in general, active weather from this sort of pattern. And you can even kind of notice that locks in for a while here, and we could be dealing with that for a bit. So something to watch here for sure. What could this look like on radar? Well, I'll back this up. Again, this is kind of where we're picking up from Monday, things remaining relatively calm, but you'll notice these areas of low pressure beginning to form here along this boundary between these two air masses. There's one, there's another one, here's a third one, and then that one kind of ends up being the big one that swings all the way through and brings a front through the entire country. And then obviously down here is what would be whatever tropical trouble we could be dealing with in the 10 to 15 day time frame. But yeah, so that's kind of what we're looking at right now. Now, what is this going to mean for temperatures? Again, I'm going to have to scroll down to find it here. But again, a couple shots of cooler air in the east right now. Again, we're very warm. This is this afternoon. I mean, again, well above average for everyone basically in the country. But there's that first shot of cool air. You'll notice that little bit of blue over the next couple of days getting through the Midwest and the Northeast. Warms up behind that, and then we get that second shot of blue into this weekend. Again, that one getting a little bit further south, even into the Carolinas by Sunday and Monday. But then after that, again, that big ridge builds back in, and we have well above average temperatures in the east, well below average temperatures out west. And then potentially some front could finally try to make it all the way across the country and bring a well-defined front for that first week in November, but that is well out there. Again, that's really just speculation at this point. All right, rainfall. This is over the next week. Again, the only rain we're seeing is in the north where these fronts are kind of just clipping the country. To the south, nothing. But you'll notice as we move this more than a week out, there's a big uptick in precipitation through kind of the central part of the country. That, again, associated with the potential of those storm systems that could be bringing a little bit of enhanced lift and potentially some more active weather as well. Snowfall-wise, over the next 10 days, maybe some snow into the interior northeast from that front this weekend. Don't count on it being a lot, though, and it doesn't look as favorable for lake effect precipitation just due to the orientation of how that cold air is crossing the lakes. Other than that, though, most of the snow stays out into the Rockies over the next 10 days, and a lot of it definitely in places, especially as those storm systems crank up in the 7 to 10 day range out there. But overall speaking, not seeing any huge snow signal. Now, again, we'll watch. Could a storm form in a favorable position? We could get some snow outside of the Rockies in the northern plains in, 10 days or so-ish. Again, give or take a couple of days. But really, that's all we're seeing right now in the snow department. So, alrighty, folks. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, a lot to stay tuned for, a lot to kind of stay aware of, definitely here going into the future. That is for sure. Alrighty, y'all have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Don't forget to come back tonight for the podcast, and I will see you all then. But with that said, again, have a great one. Stay safe, and I'll see you all tonight.